Okay, hello everybody, today we're here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 in the Cessna Skyhawk. We are flying out of Whiskey Bravo Whiskey, my home field, and this is the updated version, which I'll be releasing on flightsim.to once it is polished. We have a 54 nautical mile flight to Penn Valley, Sierra Echo Golf, also available as freeware on flightsim.to. It should be an awesome flight, and we're going to stay in first person so we can do a bit of a deeper dive, and I can talk about some of the differences between real-life flying and flight simming. Let's hop into the pilot seat and get started. Alright, we're parked here at my favorite spot at Whiskey Bravo Whiskey. We'll start by getting the window opened. Check that everything is clear around us. Head down here, check that all of our switches are off, our circuit breakers are in. Mixture idle cutoff, throttle idle. Trim to takeoff, fuel cutoff is in, and we'll rotate the fuel selector through each position and then back to the center tank. Now we'll head over here and turn on the beacon. Check once again that everything is clear. Turn on the battery and the alternator. Check our fuel quantity left to right. We do have full fuel tanks. Lights are off, that's good. Bring the mixture into full rich, crack the throttle. We'll turn on the fuel pump for a couple seconds. Turn off the fuel pump. Clear prop. Feet are on the brakes, keys are in the ignition, and we'll crank it over. Watch our oil pressure come up, and we do have oil pressure. Looks like a good engine start. We'll bring the RPMs up to 800 to 1000. And then we'll back off the mixture and lean it for ground operations. There we go. Bring on bus 1, bus 2 for avionics. How do you hear? Now that the avionics are on, we can use our headsets. So I've switched over to one of my real-life aviation headsets, which are the David Clark H1013s. Head down here to the transponder and get it squawking VFR. So we'll dial in 1200 and put it into standby. Next, while the Garmin's are booting up, we'll get the directional calibrated to the compass, so we'll read our compass heading up here, head down to the directional, and it's already set, that looks good. We'll also adjust the attitude indicator and set that to level. That's all set. Now the Garmin's booted, and as I've commented before, in real life there's a half up, half left calibration step. You also turn the OBS and see if it reads the same on the Garmin. And when I turn the OBS, it does read the same on the Garmin, so I can hit OK. And that'll take a minute to load up the satellites. We can get the Asus.
Temperature 9er. Dew point 7. Altimeter 3012. Density altitude 200 feet. Advise on initial contact, you have information November. Wilkes-Barre Scranton International Airport, information November. 1154 Zulu. Arriving and departing runways 28, 22. Wind calm. Visibility 10. Sky conditions, clear.
Since we have the luxury of two Garmin's, I'll set the second to the nearest page. That'll show me the distance to the nearest airports. And I'll turn the first to the plane track up page, which will show me the heading and the distance to my next waypoint. Let's figure out which runway is in use. So we should just be able to see the windsock up there. It looks pretty calm, but it's pointing to runway 25. And if I look over my shoulder here, I can see the windsock at the field also pointing to 25. So let's get the window closed and we'll make our announcement. Wyoming Valley traffic, Skyhawk 80471, taxi from the ramp to runway 25, hold short, Wyoming Valley. Alright, we are clear. Release the brakes, test them, and they work. And we're going to taxi to the new taxiway that's part of the update. About 2 years ago, Whiskey Bravo Whiskey did a remodel. They widened up the main taxiway, and then they added a second, smaller parallel taxiway that dumps you right onto the grass runway. And this gives you a nice flow for 25 where you can use the main one to go onto 25, and then when you're exiting 25, you can back taxi on the grass and come down the smaller taxiway here to the left. So we're going to use that smaller taxiway and taxi on the grass to what I call the run-up area for 25. During all that, it was interesting because there was a period of time when we had no ramp and no taxiways because it was all being repaved. So the planes were parked over here and tied down in the grass where you see the planes over to the left. The grass is an active runway, so we'll stop and make our call. Valley traffic, Skyhawk 471, back taxi, runway 927 to the 25 Runup area, Wyoming Valley. Alright, we're going to pull the controls all the way back because we want to pull that nose wheel up and keep the nose wheel from digging itself into the grass. And then we're going to try to avoid using the brakes while we're on the grass. It's all about keeping the plane's wheels from digging into the grass. In my last real-life aviation video on this channel, you saw a little bit of confusion for taxiing on this grass runway, and that's because the day before it had rained, and not all of the pilots were sure that we could taxi on the grass because it might be muddy. Half of us used the grass, the other half used the runway, and it created a little bit of a logjam briefly at the intersection where everybody converged. This bare patch coming up ahead that's modeled in the sim also exists in real life, and this is a remnant from a third runway that used to be at Whiskey Bravo Whiskey decades ago. Alright, we'll stop here at the white line, and we're going to do a quick run-up. So we'll bring the mixture into full rich. Check flight controls, elevator up, elevator down, left rudder, right aileron, left aileron. Bring RPMs up to 1,700. We'll do our mag check. Okay, mag left. Got a good drop, back up. Mag right. Good drop, back up. Here we're looking for spark plug fouling and also to make sure that the magnetos are both working. There's two of them. Alright, transponder to mode C, alt mode. We'll bring on the strobes at this point. And check that our avionics are set. And they're not. I need 120.95 Wilkes-Barre approach on standby. Valley traffic 471, back taxi, runway 25 for departure. We'll be departing straight out Wyoming Valley. Alright, we are clear, important to check. We'll turn around here in the bubble, and these big block numbers for 25 are one of the things that get updated with my new update for Whiskey Bravo Whiskey. Valley traffic 471, departing runway 25, straight out departure, Wyoming Valley. Full throttle. RPMs look good. Gauges look good. Airspeed's alive. And rotate. The first time I took off in real life, I think I was surprised at how high it felt like I was pitching up, even though it's only about 8 degrees. Because in the simulator, you're used to kind of always looking straight forward at the panel, and you don't have that sensation of tilting back that you get when you actually tilt back and rotate up. There's two nice things about this flight plan. One is it's basically a straight line fly runway heading flight path directly to Penn Valley. And the second is it flies right along the Susquehanna. So this is one of the first cross countries I did in real life, and they like to do this because it's pretty much impossible to get lost when you do it. We've got the autopilot on, and we've toggled over to Wilkes-Barre approach. We'll listen for a minute.
00 Bravo, contact New York Center on 132.175.
Switching to 132.175, 00 Bravo.
United 1627, contact Wilkes-Barre Tower on 120.1.
Contact Wilkes-Barre Tower 120.1, United 1627.
Alright, we can get our distance right off the nearest page. It's at the bottom there, so we're 3 miles west, and we're 2,700. Give them a call. Wilkes-Barre approach, Skygate 0471, 3 miles west, Whiskey Bravo Whiskey at 2,700. We'd like flight following, destination Penn Valley, Sierra Echo Golf at 4,500.
Skyhawk 80471, Wilkes-Barre approach, squawk 2227 and ident.
I wasn't sure if he said 77 or 27, so I'll ask. Wilkes-Barre approach, Skyhawk 80471, say again, squawk code.
Skyhawk 471, Wilkes-Barre approach, squawk 2227 and ident.
Squawk 2227 and ident, Skyhawk 80471.
Skyhawk 471, radar contact. 4 southwest of Wilkes-Barre, Wyoming Valley Airport at 3100 feet. Wilkes-Barre altimeter 3009er.
Position checks, 3009er, Skyhawk 471. We're above 3,000, so we can turn off the taxi and the landing light. I'll leave the mixture in until we hit our cruise altitude of 4,500.
Descend and maintain 15,000.
Alright, our first waypoint is Glen Lyon. That should be pretty easy to spot. It's about 10 miles along our route, and for this flight, every 10 miles, I picked out a visual waypoint so that we can fly from waypoint to waypoint. Alright, we've hit our cruise altitude of 4,500. We picked that number because we're flying west, so we need an even number plus 500. Now we can lean the mixture so I can slowly turn the mixture, and the RPMs will increase as I do that. And I'm going to watch them increase until they start to decrease, then turn the mixture back in a couple turns to have peak power. Just to the left of my nose is a beige patch. That is Glen Lyon. That's our first waypoint. And you can't quite see it because the cowling's blocking it, but lower along the river is a correctional facility. Both of those make good visual waypoints. And we can check our sectional map here. This is Navigraph sectional maps, which are using FAA VFR maps. Looks good. Off to my right here, that body of water is Pikes Creek Reservoir. I use that as a navigation point. And behind me, we just passed Nanticoke. Not there, all the way back there.
6 miles south. Bloomsburg, inbound, runway 27.
Our next waypoint you can't miss, it's Berwick. Berwick has 2 nuclear cooling towers that have steam plumes that you can see all the way from Whiskey Bravo Whiskey. We're not using the steam plumes in this case, although you can see them just off to the left there. Instead, we're using the center of Berwick.
Wilkes-Barre departure, flight 6, climbing 6,000.
Flight 6 Wilkes-Barre departure, radar contact, cleared direct Binghamton.
I remember in grade school having a field trip to a nuclear power plant, which now in hindsight must have been Berwick. And there they had displays about the splitting of the atom and fission and how nuclear power worked. Next up past Berwick, we're looking for Bloomsburg, November 1-3, so the actual airport at Bloomsburg. Bloomsburg has a very popular annual fair that people come from all over the valley, myself included, to see. That's full of all sorts of games and great food and live performances.
Flight 6, contact Wilkes-Barre Tower on 120.1.
Contact Wilkes-Barre Tower 120.1, flight 6.
We have 2 radios, so we will stay with approach on radio 1. With radio 2, we'll set it up for the weather for Penn Valley, and that'll give us an idea which runway might be in use based on the wind.
Penn Valley Airport, automated surface observation. 1153 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility 10. Sky conditions, clear.
Wilkes-Barre approach, Commutair 4965, 14,000.
Commutair 4965, radar contact.
Bloomsburg, November 13 is right at the bend in the river, so you can see where the river kind of makes an S-turn up ahead, and it's going to be tucked on the right-hand side of the S-turn. So we are almost at our next waypoint. Today we're doing a real-life flight that I've done in the past, and sometimes people ask how close is the sim to real-life flying. I answered that question on Quora once, and the answer went a bit viral with a couple 100,000 views, which really surprised me. But the question in Quora was, if you had a couple 1,000 hours of flight sim experience, could you land a plane on your own on the first try? What do you think the answer is? In my Quora answer, I talked about my discovery flight where the flight instructor was an actual F-15 fighter pilot who then went on to become a 737 captain, then retired with 18,000 hours of flight experience and became the chief flight instructor for the flight school where I got my pilot's license. So he figuratively held my hand through the entire discovery flight, telling me everything to do, and decided to let me try a landing. Attempting to land was an incredibly humbling experience for me. I kind of came in with this perception of, okay, I've done a lot of simulated flight. I think I've got an idea what needs to happen here, but in real life, I thought we were gonna die. That's about all I can say. He had to take the controls and save us. The reality was it took several lessons before I could even manage a landing without giving us a bone-jarring chiropractic realignment of our spines. The thing about landing is it isn't just the landing, it's the entire pattern. So, first you have to learn how to control the airplane. You have to learn how to fly a specific speed and power setting, and to hold an altitude and hold a heading, and do all of that coordinated. And then you have to learn how to apply a different speed and power setting consistently to each leg of the pattern, and to be able to replicate that when the conditions are changing around you, such as the direction of the wind or wind gusts or things like that. It takes a while to get a feel for that, and it is literally a feel for that. I think that's probably the thing that makes it so hard going from simming to reality, is that much like driving a car, you're not looking at your instrument gauges on the car when you're driving the car. You're reading the sensations of the road through the steering wheel, you're getting that feedback to your hands, and you're using that to almost unconsciously steer the car and keep it on center line. So you just need to get that ability through experience when flying. I'll pause to say that we've got Bloomsburg off to our left, so we passed our next waypoint. So next up we'll be looking for Danville, another town right along the Susquehanna. The other thing that's difficult is that the aircraft has 6 degrees of freedom of movement, and anytime you make an adjustment to one, it always affects multiple axes. For example, if you just want to roll the airplane, that's also going to introduce yaw, and you need to make an adjustment to the rudder, but you're also going to lose lift, so you may need to make an adjustment to pitch or power. After a while, all those things become automatic and you gain the ability to feel them. You can kind of feel the sync rate, or you can feel the uncoordination, but you just need to build up some muscle memory.
Skyhawk 471, Penn Valley Airport at your 12 o'clock, 14 miles. Change to advisory frequency approved. Radar services terminated. Squawk VFR. Take care.
Frequency change approved. Squawk VFR. Thanks for the help, Scottgate 0471. Alright, nicely done, SayIntentions. That phraseology was right on. Alright, just behind us is 8 November 8, Danville Airport. That is our 4th and final waypoint, and it's also our top of descent. So, to calculate top of descent, we are flying at 4,500. Traffic pattern altitude for Penn Valley is 1,500. We'd like to fly 500 feet above traffic pattern altitude to check out the windsock, which is 2,000. So we've got to go 4,500 to 2,000, which is 2,500 feet for a descent. Multiply by 3, that works for the Cessna Skyhawk. 2.5 times 3 is 7.5, so at about 8 miles. We'd like to descend at around 500 feet per minute to arrive at 2,000 feet at the field. So we'll turn on the taxi and the landing light. We've got the mixture in for full rich as we do our descent here. On my right here is one of the many islands of the Susquehanna, and on that island is 71 November Sunbury, which is a grass strip airport on an island, which is very cool. Sunbury is interesting in that most of the islands of the Susquehanna are uninhabited, probably because many of them get submerged when the river comes up, but this is one of the few that has something on it. We'll turn off the autopilot here and hand fly it. Because the weather had winds calm, we don't know which runway is in use. We'd listen to CTAF to see if they are announcing which runway is in use. Haven't heard anything, so we'll need to fly over midfield and check out the windsock. And I've got the field almost straight ahead here, so we'll make a CTAF call. Penn Valley traffic, Skyhawk 80471, 3 miles southeast at 2,100. We'll be overflying midfield at 2,000, inbound for full stop, Penn Valley. Alright, it's hard to see because it's tucked just into the corner to the side of the panel there, but there is the windsock, and it is pointing to runway 35, which is off to our left. So that means we're going to continue flying across midfield, and we're going to do a big descending turn around the mountain that's just to the side of the field here. That mountain has a tower right in the middle of it, so I don't want to cross over that. So I like to do this big loop around the mountain, and when I come over the other side of it, it's going to put me on a nice 45-degree entry for the left downwind for runway 35. There's that tower right in the middle of the mountain, and we've descended to about pattern altitude 1,500, so we're going to keep that turn coming and level out. I'd like to be about 80 knots as I arrive on the downwind leg. Penn Valley traffic, Skyhawk 80471, 1,500 entering left downwind, runway 35, full stop, Penn Valley. So for me, in real life, it took several lessons to get this right. We had to really dissect it. We had to get, can you arrive on the downwind leg and have the right power settings and spacing and be at 80 knots and be at pattern altitude? And it took a while to get that. And then the next was, okay, can you put in the flaps and turn onto the base leg and have the right power settings for that and not let your speed get too high and not let your speed get too low? And then once we sorted out the base leg, it's alright, can you manage final and short final? And then once we did that, that was the hard part, which was the few seconds that you're over the runway, can you do all the right things that you need to do to not balloon or not land too hard or be on center line? It was a real challenge for me. It was a real struggle. I had a lot of trouble with landings. Alright, we're being our touchdown point so we can power back. Bring in our first notch of flaps. The flaps have responded. I always check that visually because I had, and it's a video on this channel, I had an actual lesson where the flaps broke. And I thought the flaps went down because I pushed the flap switch, but in reality they didn't do anything. Alright, we're getting a nice descent rate. I want to lose about 200 feet here before turning base and be at the 45 to the touchdown point, which we are, so we can turn. Penn Valley traffic, Skyhawk 80471, left base runway 35, full stop, Penn Valley. And these turns take some practice in real life. It's very easy to pick up too much speed or get very slow when doing one of these turns. Check for our alignment to the runway. Put in our next notch of flaps. We're going to do flaps 20 for today. Penn Valley traffic, Skyhawk 80471, final runway 35, full stop, Penn Valley. Turned a little bit early, so we're going to shallow up my turn rate so that we can still intercept center line. And then right about here I'm shooting for about 70 knots. And then I want to be 65 for short final. In this model of Skyhawk, 1,700 RPMs seems to work pretty well. For the Skyhawk M's, which are from the 70s that I fly, I usually use 1,500 for my power setting. I will say that I had multiple CFIs during my flight training, and every single one of them had a different way they like to land. The F-15 pilot, for example, preferred to do power idle from the point when you were beam your touchdown point, so basically come in as if you were engine out for the entire landing. While some of my other CFIs preferred to come in at 1500 and then pull power when you had the runway made. It was a little frustrating that it got changed every time I changed CFI, but the end result was it made me more versatile and have a lot of different approaches that I could use and choose the right tool for the environment that day. Alright, we were a little floaty and went a little bit long, but we just missed our turnoff, so I'm going to just do a 180 here and back taxi. Penn Valley traffic, Skyhawk 471, back taxi, runway 35 to the ramp, Penn Valley. Okay, we can stop here, do the after landing checklist, which involves turning the transponder to standby. We'll turn off the strobes, and I'll turn off the landing light, clean the mixture for ground. Penn Valley traffic 471, clear runway 35, taxi to the ramp, Penn Valley. Alright, this is another one of my freeware airports, so check the video details if you'd like to download Whiskey Bravo Whiskey and or Penn Valley. Looks like the marshal has picked out my parking spot for me, so we'll follow his instructions and come around here to the right to come in front of him. Okay, shutdown checklist. Avionics are coming off. Light switches are coming off. Trim set back to takeoff. Mixture to auto cutoff. Keys off and out of the ignition. Battery and alternator off. Keys on the dash. Open up the window. Let in a little bit of fresh air. And we'll do the debrief. Alright, that was a little bit of a longer flight today, but we got into some more detail about the flight plan, things that you look for, and even talked about the differences between the sim and reality. So I hope you liked the deep dive. So I hope you enjoy aviation content like this. If you do, be sure to leave me a comment. And if you don't, also leave me a comment. Let me know what you would like to see, and we can do some subscriber requests for the future. So thanks as always for flying along with me, and stay tuned for further flight adventures.